Okay. Yesterday, Vice President JD Vance got his own turn at the briefing room. Everybody gets a chance. I guess that is what Daddy Trump thinks about. And he gave Marco Rubio, his other favorite son, a chance last week. So JD Vance got his turn. And I figured I've had so much fun with Caroline Levitt. Why not give a little whirl of seeing what JD Vance has to say? And then I'll give my own take on the actual answers to the questions. All right, we're going to start with a question from Jonathan Karl of ABC News.
Why should taxpayers be paying to settle a $10 billion lawsuit that was brought by the President of the United States? And should people that attacked the Capitol building and assaulted police officers, should they be eligible? Should they receive money? Should they receive money from this fund?
This is about compensating Americans for the lawfare that we saw under the last administration. And by the way, anybody can apply for it. Republicans can apply for it. Democrats can apply for it. As you know, the President of the United States has pardoned a number of Democrats who he felt were actually subject to this lawfare. I mean, if Hunter Biden wants to apply for this particular fund, he is welcome to. It's going to go through a normal process where we vet everything, where we try to identify whether people's claims are actually legitimate. But here's the question. You say, why should taxpayers fund this? Whenever the United States government incurs legal expenses, it pays out those legal expenses. When it's settling a lawsuit, it pays out money to settle that lawsuit. And the question is a dollar of this money going to the Trump administration? No. Is a dollar of this money going to Donald Trump personally? No. Is a dollar of this money going to Donald Trump's family? No.
First of all, of course it is going to benefit Trump. This is a political slush fund that Trump can use at his disposal and his discretion to basically pay off, to reward his political buddies, including people who were part of the insurrection on January 6th, which, by the way, happened on Donald Trump's watch when he was still president and trying to hold on to office, as did all of the fake electors who also could benefit from this and surely will apply. We will certainly see. But the other part of what JD Vance had to say there, so many parts to really unravel there. First of all, lawfare, that's what we're referring to this as. These are, again, people who went through a court of law, who were convicted, and then they were pardoned by Trump. And now he's sending out a bat signal, you can apply for this funding. And by the way, I'm going to have a committee of 5 people, but I can decide who they are. And also I can fire them at any point in time. And there's also no evidence at this point that we, the public, are going to have any information about who gets paid what and when they get paid and how much they get paid. That's what we're talking about here, JD Vance. Okay, no surprise, Jonathan Karl had a follow-up question, so let's take that question.
So isn't it just as easy to say that people that attacked police officers should not get taxpayer money from this fund?
Well, look, John, we're not trying to give money to anybody who attacked a police officer. We're trying to we're trying to compensate people where the book was thrown at them, they were mistreated by the legal system. Sometimes, we do have, John, in this country, innocent until proven guilty. We do have people who were accused of attacking law enforcement officers. That doesn't mean that we're going to completely ignore some of the claims that they're going to make. We're going to evaluate these things on a case-by-case basis. And if we think that somebody, whatever they were accused of, if we think that somebody was unfairly prosecuted and deserves just compensation, then that's what this fund is going to exist to provide.
Okay, let's just go back to the original question here, because I'm going to start there. The original question from Jonathan Karl was, isn't it just as easy to say that people that attacked police officers should not get taxpayer money from this fund? The answer there should be yes. No, they should not get money from this taxpayer fund or any money from taxpayers. That is a very easy question. This is the Law and Order Party. JD Vance is the vice president and one of the leaders, supposedly, of the party. That is an easy question, should be an easy answer. Also, many of the people they're talking about here, people who marched on the Capitol, were convicted. Innocent until proven guilty. You went through the whole legal process and you were convicted and Donald Trump pardoned you. That's not what we're talking about here. Anyway, okay, let's go on to the next one because there were a lot of good questions in this briefing and there's many to address. Let's go to one from Caitlin Collins. This is a different topic, but still an important one to talk about.
You last week denied that the president said he was not taking Americans' financial situations into consideration when he's making decisions on the Iran war. He was asked about that again. He stood by it, called it a perfect statement, and said he would make it again. Do you believe that Americans' financial situations should be taken into consideration when you're making decisions as an administration about the war?
What I said is that a question that was asked where the president allegedly said that he didn't care about Americans' financial situations. He never said that. What he said is that when it was totally taken out of context.
Okay. It wasn't allegedly, it was on camera. Let's just roll the tape for this one and wish they had this in the briefing room because Caitlin Collins could have used it if they had it. Okay, let's play the tape of what Trump said.
When you're negotiating with Iran, Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
That is the full context. You heard the question, you heard the answer, not in any way out of context. JD Vance also could have said, no, Americans' financial situation should be thought about whenever we're making decisions in the federal government. But that would have pissed off Donald Trump. So what was going on in JD Vance's mind in that moment? I suspect this. Did he really say that? I can't believe he said that. I'm going to say it's out of context because that's an easy thing to say, even though, as I just played for you, it's clearly not in any way out of context. That's obvious what I should say, but I'm not going to say that because I'm going to make Trump mad and I really want to be president. I can't make him mad, but I don't want to echo what he said because that's a crazy thing to say if you want to run for president and in general. That was what was going on through JD Vance's head. Okay, let's take another one. This one is from Garrett Haake from NBC News. Garrett, okay, let's hear what we have to ask.
You and the president ran on a platform that included no new wars, cutting gas prices, cutting inflation. What do you say to people who are going to the polls today and who feel like those promises are unkept?
Well, I'd say a few things. First of all, we've delivered great wins for the American people. We are very aware that because of what's going on in the Middle East, gas prices have gone up and a lot of Americans are struggling because of that. Our view is that it is a temporary increase. We're taking a number of steps to try to push back against it and try to ensure that Americans are paying as little at the pump as possible. But I feel quite confident after we've taken care of business in the Middle East, those prices are going to come down.
I mean, I'm going to go back to the question on this one too, because I think this is an important part of it. The question, a very good question from Garrett Haake of NBC News. You and the president ran on a platform that included no new wars, cutting gas prices, cutting inflation. What do you say to people who are going to the polls today and who feel like those promises are unkept? Okay, first of all, let's be real. They are unkept. No new wars. We're currently in a war with Iran. Cutting gas prices. We all know that's not the case. Gas prices are now $4.55 a gallon. And that most experts are predicting that could drag well into 2027. What was the third little promise you made here? Oh, cutting inflation. Well, we know that is not the case either. So promises unkept. Now, here's the other thing I just wanted to touch on. In my little critique of what the vice president had to say in response to that question. He literally said, but I feel confident after we've taken care of business in the Middle East, those prices are going to come down. First of all, what on earth does taking care of business mean? Ending the war? No one knows how you're going to end the war. Nobody knows why you're in the war, but certainly there's no clarity on how the war is going to end. So that's not like a little just to-do list item you can check off on a Friday. That seems like a pretty pivotal part of that. Okay, we're going to do one more question. This one is from, Nick Gilbertson from Breitbart. Why the heck not? All right, Nick, go ahead.
Today we saw the president endorse Ken Paxton over John Cornyn in the Texas Senate race. Do you think that sends a message going forward for the next cycle to senators, considering running for re-election or any MAGA-aligned potential candidates that are considering challenging them?
I've known John Cornyn for a long time, but unfortunately, when it really counted, Ken Paxton was there for the country, was there for the president, and that's why he ultimately earned the president's endorsement. He thinks he's going to be a better senator, thinks he's going to make a better candidate, and so I do think it sends a message, but really not just the endorsement. And I think one of the things we've seen in the Republican Party, while I can't say that all of our representatives are perfect or all of our senators are perfect, we have seen a much better crop of talent come into Washington since Donald Trump has been the leader of the party and the leader of the movement.
Okay. Let's just start with Ken Paxton, because JD Vance described him as, when it really counted, I just wanted to get this quote exactly right, Ken Paxton was there for the president, was there for the country, was there for the president. Okay, in case you're not familiar with Ken Paxton, and you probably are familiar with Ken Paxton, just a couple of things from his kind of rap sheet here. In 2015, he was indicted over accusations of defrauding investors. He pleaded not guilty. In 2024, he struck a deal with prosecutors where he agreed to pay almost $300,000 in restitution and complete 100 hours of community service in exchange for the charges being dropped. In 2020, well, the case played out. He was accused by members of his senior staff of taking bribes from a real estate developer and abusing his office. Paxton ended up firing 4 of the whistleblowers. I could just literally go on. I mean, his wife also divorced him on biblical grounds, as she described it, and accused him of adultery. Lots of things to say about Ken Paxton, maybe one of the most corrupt people on the ballot this November, but he was there for the country. I don't even know what that means. Now, there's also John Cornyn, and that is a sad state of things. John Cornyn, not a great year for him for a million reasons, including this is not a pro-Washington establishment year. That guy's incredibly pro-Washington. But you know what else he's very much been? Very pro-Trump. I mean, he literally read Trump's book on social media in hopes, I guess, of having the president see him. He has voted with him an overwhelming majority of the time. Even after he didn't endorse him, he posted on X basically kissing up to Trump. He has embraced and hugged the man and done everything he's asked him to do. So what message does it send to Republicans? Just to go back to the original question, surprisingly a good one from Breitbart, I will say. It basically says loyalty. You say it's loyalty. That's what Trump argued it was in the Massey race. It's clearly not, because if you look at John Cornyn, few people have been as loyal to Trump who have been in positions of power as John Cornyn, and it didn't matter. Why? Well, I don't know. I would guess that maybe Trump thinks Ken Paxton may win the primary. Maybe he thinks his core base, the only people who really he cares about, like Paxton better. Both of them are possibilities. But John Cornyn's loyalty basically got him nothing. So there's a little take on JD Vance's briefing that happened this week.